One of my favorite novels is The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford. I have it alongside F. Scott Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby and Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence. Thematically, they're very similar. They both are about love and infidelity and passion. And the endings to those three books are quite memorable. Now, The Good Soldier is quite tragic. Now, the first sentence of The Good Soldier, which is said by the narrator, who's an unreliable narrator, is "This is the saddest story I've ever heard." And I kept thinking about that line when I read Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith. Now, I'm not suggesting that the ending to this book is like The Good Soldiers or The Age of Innocence or The Great Gatsby. But emotionally, the book is an ebb and flow of many, many emotions. You go through different stages of grief and horror and bewilderment and tension and joy. I think in time it will be considered a classic. What I discuss at this point are my thoughts about some things I like about this book, which are many. And whatever they do reveal, I don't think will detract from a reader's experience. If there was any doubt about Barry Windsor-Smith's writing ability, this clears it up. As an artist, he's been revered for decades, and rightly so. But it's not been clear about his writing ability. After this, there's no doubt. He's a first-rate writer. Basically, our story is about a young man who's recruited to become a super soldier. He doesn't know it, but that's what happens. The young man is here, Bobby Bailey, who we get a glimpse of in the opening pages. That's his mother, that's the father. Now note the title of the book is called Monsters. It's plural. Sergeant McFarlane, who is the recruiter, has found the perfect person to be part of the Prometheus program, a Nazi program which now the Americans are using to create a super soldier. Now, Bobby, who's an adult, does not want to be called Robert. He wants to be called Bobby, because outside his own head he doesn't exist. Because what I discovered was that the happiest moments of his life were the first 8 years, between 1941 and 1949, while his father, a German interpreter, was away in the war. Everything changed when his father came home, culminating in tragedy on Thanksgiving. He will then live in limbo, a living death, until his recruitment and transformation into an abomination. But he's not the monster. Now the recruiter, Sergeant McFarlane, I think is the conscience of the story. His father, as we learn in the book, out of compassion, stops the assassination of a Nazi scientist during the Second World War. And that same man kills him. Then, unbeknownst to him, many years later, when he's in the military, he recruits Bailey for the Prometheus program. And his conscience weighs on him. But there's something else about McFarlane, something special about him, which we'll learn in the story. He also believes in destiny. Things happen for a reason. And he wants to make amends for what he has done. Now, McFarlane, when he was a young man, he had a vision. Well, not a vision, he had an experience, which he saw as a vision. He saw this woman here. Now, this scene here is one of many enchanting scenes in this book. He's a young man. He sees this woman here at a bus stop. Now, he thinks she's some kind of angel, the way he sees her. But as a grown man, he realizes that this woman was the mother of Bobby Bailey. Later on in the story, we see it from the point of view of Janet Bailey, the mother, who remembers that same scene, but in a more realistic manner. As you can see here. Now, for me, the story of Bobby, who was this little boy turned into this abomination. Who's trying to basically go home again to those first years of his life before his father comes home. Here he is reimagining it. There's his mother. There's his father. But of course we all know you can't ever go home again. But for me, what completely captivated me was the story of his mother, Janet Bailey, who is loving kindness. Once the father returns, she's trapped like a songbird in a cage with an open door. But she doesn't see a way of escape. She's so terrified of her husband, devoted to her son, but conflicted by the love for another man, Jack Powell, a police officer, who befriends her while her husband is away in the war. While her husband is discharged, but he remains in Germany for unknown reasons. But for the reader, we know it has something to do with the Prometheus project. She's devoted to her son, but she's conflicted by her emotions for Jack Powell. Now, Jack Powell, like I mentioned, is a police officer in our story, who, like McFarlane, also has a conscience. But he fails to act, and his failure to act, something happens. A tragedy ensues, and he wants to rake might for Bobby, the so-called monster in our story. Now, one thing about the comic book medium, which films can't do, novels can't do, are scenes like this. All these pages I've gone through are the interactions between Janet and Jack Powell before her husband returns from the war. A deep affection develops between them. And you see these moments, these beautiful moments in the rain. She's waiting for the bus. And they kiss, with the bus driver witnessing what's happening there, you see. Now when you turn the page, now if any of you have been in this situation where you've kissed a woman and you say her name in a certain way, and she turns to you and says, "No, don't say my name like that," which means she likes to hear that, but she's compromised, and she doesn't hear that from you. Now, in a film, this scene would move to this, so you don't have time to contemplate on these 3 panels. In the book, in a printed word, you don't see. Look at those closed eyes, the lips. Look at that pained look on her face. And she's torn by this. She's absolutely torn by it all. And so is he. Another part about the book that I like very much are the letters and the journals that Janet Bailey keeps. I mentioned in The Good Soldier that the narrator is an unreliable narrator, and in some respects, so is Janet. She keeps journals and letters, but she changes things. She leaves things out, which the reader knows are false. Or we realize what she's trying to say, but she can't reveal it to us. I mean, she can't reveal it to herself, I'm sorry. And when I saw these pages, I thought of Dave Sim, because Dave Sim did this in Cerebus, in Jocka's story, in the story about F. Scott Fitzgerald and Ernest Hemingway and Oscar Wilde. And they worked wonderfully there. Now I'll stop here and not turn into the next 120 or so pages of this book, which begin with Thanksgiving, 1949, 8 months into the return of Bobby's father, Janet's husband, the German interpreter who's been away for a very long time. A man who loved Walt Whitman. A man who courted her, loved her, and she loved him. But something happened while he was away. Something he experienced, although he was not a combat soldier. And it has to do with that Prometheus program. By Windsor-Smith Monsters. A remarkable achievement, which I strongly suggest you go and take a look. Thank you for viewing.